What will happen after we die? We started these programs by saying that it's one of the most important questions we can ever ask. At the heart of the Christian message is the claim that Jesus rose from the dead. This is the central moment of history. It confirms God's reality. It confirms that Jesus is the Son of God, and it confirms that there is life after death. So what do you think? Did Jesus really rise from the dead? And if he did, how does this change things? The people we've talked to in these programs have spent their lives studying the evidence. We asked them what difference it makes to them personally.
In 1995, I watched while my wife died of stomach cancer. It was an agonizing death. Thankfully, she wasn't in a lot of pain, but she was of small stature anyway, and she lost about half her body weight, and it was just agonizing for me to see her just waste away like this. And we were very close, and I had 4 children at home, and the youngest was only 9 years old. And I think about Paul's words in 1 Thessalonians where Paul says, when believers die, believers grieve. We mourn. But Paul says, believers don't mourn as those who have no hope. Do you ever think about that? To mourn with hope or to mourn without hope? There's all the difference in the world. Jesus wept over the death of his friend Lazarus, even though he was he raised him from the dead in a matter of minutes. So grieving is not fun, but grieving with eternal hope makes all the difference in the world.
Just under a year ago, I had the great privilege of taking my father's funeral. My father was 91, and he had lived a long, good life. He'd been a prisoner of war, suffered greatly, and had come back and had quietly got on and made a life and made a home and brought up his family and had seen children, grandchildren, and happily great-grandchildren. And to be honest, if I didn't believe in the resurrection, the funeral would have meant one thing for me. Because I do believe in the resurrection, the funeral meant something totally and utterly different. And though, of course, it was hugely sad to be saying goodbye to my great father, who I'm really grateful for, I have a sense of saying good night and see you in the morning.
To know that Jesus rose from the dead changes everything in my life. Life often is difficult. All sorts of things come. Loss of job, loss of income, loss of a loved one, diseases, families blowing up, relationships. These things are very trying in our lives. And sometimes God just seems quiet and absent. To know that Jesus rose from the dead, though, makes all the difference, because it tells me that I matter to God, that he really cares for me. And it tells me that this life is not the end of things. We're going to spend a whole lot more time with God within eternity than we are on this earth. So it helps me to put things in perspective and to understand that this life is just a proving ground to mold me and to make me more like Jesus and to appreciate more of who God is.
If the resurrection of Jesus really happened, then it is fraught with significance, both for mankind in general, as well as for each of us individually. In general, it means that the claims of Jesus of Nazareth were true, that this man was not a blasphemer. He really was the Son of God. And therefore, Jesus holds the key that unlocks the door to eternal life. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And he who lives and believes in me shall never die. So this holds out the hope of eternal life and relationship with God. It also means that there is going to be complete spiritual, physical, and psychological healing for us. Jesus' resurrection body was the prototype for our own resurrection bodies. The Christian hope is not of a disembodied existence, a soul that flies off to some ethereal realm. We will have supernatural bodies like Jesus that will inhabit a renewed creation. And in this transformed world, we will be freed from every disability, from muscular dystrophy and multiple sclerosis and mental retardation and cerebral palsy to your bad back or your lumbago. Everything will be completely physically healed, and what a hope that is. But also psychological healing. Every one of us is psychologically broken, I think. We all carry emotional scars from our childhood and from experiences in life that have shaped us in different ways. And there will be complete psychological healing in the resurrection as well. We'll become transparent, open, whole people, freed from every kind of neurosis and anxiety and emotional difficulty that makes life so hard here. And then, of course, spiritual healing, freedom from sin, now to live righteous, pure lives that are pleasing to God. So there is tremendous personal hope, I think, as a result of the resurrection of Jesus. And I'm so glad that God has chosen to vindicate Jesus in this very public way as a basis for the wonderful Christian hope that we as Christians entertain.
The great turning point in human history, the moment when everything changed, was when Jesus came out of the tomb on Easter morning. We live in a world which fools itself that the great turning point in history came in Europe and America in the 18th century, when we had what was called the Enlightenment, and with our new ideas and our new science and our new democracies, etc., we were actually going to solve the problems of the world. If you look back at the last couple of hundred years, you say, well, give me a break. If that's called solving the problems of the world, then we're going to have to think a bit better in the future. But actually that's because the Enlightenment has offered a parody of Christianity. The Enlightenment, therefore, wants to rubbish the resurrection, because if the resurrection happened, it means that that was the great turning point of history, not Europe in the 18th century. And so the agenda for Christians today, and this I think is very powerful for me right now, is to go back and re-inhabit the truth that God's new world was born, not when certain European thinkers had some bright ideas 200 years ago, but when Jesus came out of the tomb on Easter morning. And as we learn to live out of that belief, out of that event, then that is the way in which God's kingdom is going to come on earth as in heaven.
The resurrection makes a huge difference to me personally, because I'm not interested in following a religion based on somebody's ideas, or because my parents have told me something, or on something mythological, as uplifting as that may or may not be. The uniqueness of the Christian faith is that at the heart of it there is this claim that it is actually true and real, and that the events happened in history and that we can know that. So when I make a claim about Jesus Christ and his ability to save me through his death on the cross, and his promise that I can be forgiven for what I have done and I can be with him in eternity, even though I'm a sinful person, that promise that he makes is not pie in the sky. That is actually rooted in truth and reality. He came in history, he lived, he died on a Roman cross, and then he was risen from the dead, and that actually happened in history. So his claims are staked in verifiable evidence, so that what I believe is actually true. It's not delusion, it's not fantasy, it's not tradition of my family, it's actually true and real. That's the difference the resurrection makes.